Hi, I want to show you a cool way to write inequalities. This is an answer for a graphing inequalities question. If you don't know what that's about, I'll put a link up here so you can see what those problems look like. But the way we were taught how to do that, you would write your answer using something called inequality notation. And what I'm going to show you is called interval notation. You'll also use this when you're talking about domain and range. If you're in the classes that talk about that, your teacher may want you to use interval notation. Let me show you how it works. So first of all, inequality notation, how you write it, is describing with symbols what this means. These can all be the answers X could be when you solved a particular problem. And we can see that it starts at -9. See the -8 and the -10. So this is -9. And it goes up to the -4. And X is in between there. And then if you have an open circle, you would use a less than sign. And if you have a closed circle, you would use a less than or equal to sign. And I'm assuming you've seen all this stuff before. If you haven't, again, go back to that other video. And this is how we learned to write this. Well, interval notation, which is, no lie, my favorite, does it a little differently. You still refer to the -9 and the 4, and we write them like this, which almost looks like a coordinate ordered pair. It's not. You got to keep this in context. But the -9 will have a symbol on it that's like it's a parentheses. I may call this a soft bracket. And the 4, because you can't land on it, so it's an open circle, we would use something that's soft. And for the part you can land on, you would use a hard bracket that has corners. And that is interval notation. I like it because I think it's easier to write. It's shorter, right? But, it's different. You got to learn how to do it. So remember, open circles get soft brackets. Closed circles would get hard brackets. All right, let's do it again. All right, the numbers we're working with here, we're going from 2 up to 9. And our answer can be anything that's in between. You can land on the 2. You cannot land on the 9. You go right up to it. In inequality notation, which is what we're more familiar with, it would be 2 less than or equal to X, and then less than 9. So this is kind of like the idea of in between, written in inequality notation. In interval notation, you just write the numbers 2 and 9, and then you put the appropriate bracket on it. I can land on the 2, so that's going to be a hard bracket. I cannot land on the 9, so that's the soft bracket. All right, another example. I can actually land on both of these. So I'm going from -6 up to -2. Inequality notation, less than or equal to for both. An interval notation, pause and see if you can do it. And hard brackets on both. See how cool that is? I just like it a lot more. All right, we'll do another one, and then we'll make it a little trickier when you get some tricky ones. But this one is, I just want to see if you can do it. Interval notation last. Let's do inequality notation. We're going from the -4 up to the 2, open circles. So you just do less than signs, not with the equals to. Interval notation. You write the -4, comma 2, and that won't be confusing at all. Again, it's in context. It'll be in context. So yeah, if this was just randomly on a piece of paper, I would assume that that's an ordered pair, like a point on a graph. But it's interval notation. And you can't land on the -4 and you can't land on the 2, but it's everything in between. Okay, now when you have a situation like this, things get a little bit more confusing because you actually have to make 2 statements here. First off, these arrows going in both directions mean you're heading off to -infinity and positive infinity. On this side, you're starting with the -10 but not including it, open circle, and going in this direction forever. You also cannot include the -infinity. You can't land on infinity. So in our inequality notation, we would say that negative infinity is less than x and x is less than negative 10. In interval, wait, we're not done here. I've got to do this side too. So then you write the word or. So our answer could be here or it's up here. And this is a 1 between the 0 and the 2, and it's going to infinity. So you start with the 1. X is between 1 and infinity, but that's a closed circle, so it could land on it. And so this would be the correct answer in inequality notation. In interval notation, you just draw or write each one of these separately. And we'll use a parentheses up here because that's open, and we will use a closed bracket here because you can land on it. So for this one, you're going to have negative infinity to 10 or negative 10. You cannot land on either one of those. For this one, you're going to go 1 to infinity. So this would be parentheses, and this one would have a bracket on the 1 because you can land on it, and a parentheses on infinity because you can't land on infinity. And then we would put the or in here. Your teacher may want to talk about other symbols that you could put in here, but for this video, I'm just going to keep consistent and use the word or. All right, try this one. Pause if you want. We have our negative infinity and our positive infinity. It goes from 5 to negative infinity. So when you write that, you write it in order. So it would be the negative infinity first, and then the 5, and our x can be somewhere in between. Our answer is in there somewhere. So that is less than and less than or equal to because you can land on the 5. Or we're going from 6 to infinity. We cannot land on the 6 and we cannot land on infinity, so both of these would be less than signs. Now, in interval notation, those are our intervals. Negative infinity up to the 5, and then 6 up to the infinity. It just doesn't include the numbers in between 5 and 6 would be like fractions or decimals, however you want to think about that. You cannot land on infinity, but we can land on the 5 because that's a closed circle. We cannot land on the 6 because that's open, and we cannot land on infinity, and we write the word or in there. Which one do you like? Tell me down below in the comments. I'm pretty clear about I really love interval notation. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!